Hi, Dr. Keith Scott-Mumby here. I'd like to talk to you about my Science of Being and Consciousness teleseries. It's developed into something pretty awesome. In fact, I would say probably a historic collection of recordings and interviews with some of the great minds of our time, with different viewpoints, different ideas, and a whole bunch of science. I'm very particular about the science here. I would say it's pretty well a historic collection of recordings. As I said, one of my colleagues even suggested the idea of a time capsule, you know, that model where you put something in a hermetically sealed container, you bury it in the ground, and then maybe someone will dig it up in 50 years' time, 100 years' time, or even 1,000 years' time. Maybe it won't be dug up by human beings, it'll be dug up by aliens who came to find an Earth where there aren't human beings anymore. I hope not. Anyway, I'm not serious, of course. I'm not actually going to put it in a time capsule, but I do think it's true that we've reached that kind of standard. This is kind of state of the art. This is as much as we know at this time. This is really the highest point of human knowledge about human beings and what the subject of being actually means. Now, we're also full of science here. We don't do the fluff. This has got nothing to do with the law of attraction and those things. I'm tired of going on the web and seeing the scores and scores of these teleseries where they want to talk about consciousness, or they pretend it's about consciousness and being, and all it's about is getting rich and getting the girlfriend or sweetheart that you want, the so-called law of attraction. There is no such law. It's a complete hoax, and a lot of stinkers are getting rich by perpetrating this hoax. It started in modern times with The Secret, although it's been around a long time. As I said, there is no law of attraction. You must know if you've tried it, it doesn't work about 0.5%, 1% of the time maybe. That's not a law. A law has got to work 100% of the time. And it just doesn't happen that way. Now listen, let me be straight here. I don't say that there's no such thing as manifesting. But it's an ability. You have to practice and learn this ability. It's within the powers of consciousness to influence our reality, but it's something you have to learn to do. If you listen to all this secret baloney, you'd think it's some God-given right from the cosmos. All you've got to do is ask, demand it, and it's yours, all these kind of messages. No, it isn't. The cosmos is not going to give you $1 million if you're not worth $1 million. Listen, if you want to manifest $1 million, go and figure out something valuable for the human race and give it to them, sell it to them, whatever. They will pay you the $1 million if you're that good. But the idea that you're going to get $1 million or even $100,000, even $20,000, if you're not worth it, it ain't going to happen, folks. You know, you've got to give value. You can't just get. It violates all laws of the universe. And as I said, it's not a law anyway. So we're carefully distancing ourselves from that. One of my speakers, actually, it's true, did bring up the law of attraction. Like me, he doesn't think it's a law. It doesn't work. Or more strictly, if you do the maths and the technicalities, yes, there is a kind of law of probabilities there that will bring it to you sooner or later. But as he points out with the math, we're talking of trillions of years, not in this lifetime and certainly not next week. All these stories that you hear are either not true or they were going to happen anyway, or it is a person who has developed the ability. But you know, the idea that the mass of people can go out and they have such a powerful consciousness inside their head that they can make God or the cosmos give them $1 million, forget it. Now, the thing is, there is some real science about this subject, and this is what's been exciting. We've had people on talking about the very advanced age of consciousness and what it all means, you know, survival after death. Listen, a lot of things here like remote viewing and past lives, telepathy, telekinesis. If you understand advanced physics, this is one of my favorite sayings, advanced physics doesn't just say these things could happen, it says that they must happen. And really a lot of so-called scientists and doctors, they wouldn't have any trouble with holistic healing and you know, strange paranormal phenomena if they understood that they're not really paranormal. They are normal. They're there enshrined in the laws of physics, as it were. Take the participation of consciousness. It's very clear now to leading edge scientists that consciousness actually participates in our reality. Quantum physics taught us this. It's the so-called observer effect, that if until somebody actually participates by looking at a system, it doesn't define itself fully. Only when you look at it does it crystallize into what we call our reality. And you know, what is reality anyway? It's only what we perceive. You know, the only reality we have out there is what our eyes tell us, what our ears tell us, our fingertips from touch and so on. We don't know really what kind of world is out there. We only know what kind of world we perceive. And perception really comes down to conscious awareness. I have another saying, which is information implies consciousness. The idea of information doesn't have much value or meaning outside the concept of consciousness. So anyway, it's been very exciting with these leading experts. For example, Gary Schwartz stunned us when he talked about experiments with afterlives, people who died but were actually still communicating. Listen, nothing woo-woo. This was all done up with double-blind and in fact at one stage triple-blind experimentation so that nobody could really fake it or get round the rules, and yet he told us fascinating and funny stories like a deceased spirit that got involved in the experiments and actually influenced them and wanted to get, made a significant impact on the statistical outcomes. These kind of things, these are brilliant and exciting. And we heard from Lynn McTaggart, research that's done, current research in fact, that's going on. I saw an article in New Scientist only about 4 weeks ago that we can actually influence the past. And silly as it sounds, you can study after you took the exam and influence the results. There are certain provisos to that. You have to be the first person to look at the data. Otherwise, somebody has already collapsed the vector, as the quantum physicists say. But really, statistically robust, and what that means is, it's millions to one against it happening by chance, show that we can it's called retrocausality, that we can influence events from the past from now. So does that say time's running backwards or can run backwards? Well, kind of. I mean, physics has known that time can run backwards since Newton's day. His laws of motion, if you know where how big a body is and how fast it's traveling and in what direction, you can tell where it's going to be in 5 minutes or 5,000 years if it keeps moving. But you can also go backwards and say where it was 5 minutes ago or where it was 5,000 years ago. So it's not such a strange idea, but it does mean, time as we know, it's a bit of an illusion really. And the same with space. Space doesn't exist at all. When we did science at school, we used to think of space as something that separates things. Now, if it exists at all, it's something that actually brings together different separate objects and identities. But it's, this non-locality thing is really saying the same as there's no such thing as space. And we had Russell Targ, a brilliant pioneer of remote viewing. Listen, this man had a team, him and Hal Puthoff researched this starting in the 70s. They were so good at remote viewing that the CIA hired them and paid them lots of money over 20 years, more than a 20-year period. The CIA, the defense, I forgot what it's called, but the Defense Department in the USA, these people don't fool around. They don't screw around with woo-woo stuff. If it doesn't work and doesn't give them the results, they just cancel next year's grant. But they kept it going because they got amazing results. From Russell Targ, we heard this amazing story of a guy penetrating a Russian defense thing, 10,000 miles away, or a long way away anyway, thousands of miles away. And he found this strange spherical object that was like a 60-foot orange, 60 foot across. Well, there was nothing showed up on photographs and no known object existed until actually about 2 years later, the Russians brought the thing up to the surface and sure enough it was there. You can't really argue with stuff like this, and it's no good people like Richard Dawkins banging on and say it's all a hoax, it's all an illusion. There's more science, this is Russell Targ speaking, right? There's more science and more reason to believe ESP. There's rock solid proof that no reasonable person could doubt it. And he compares that with what he calls fluff and fancy, the string theory. There's no proof for that. It's just a lot of hooey, actually. And there's not really much support for the Big Bang anymore. It doesn't deliver the goods, what it predicts should happen hasn't happened. You can't find this dark matter. The universe we inhabit is 40 orders of magnitude too flat for what's predicted. They should have given this up long ago. And in fact, a famous scientific journal called Nature published a paper in 1988 that said the Big Bang is dead, but they still hang in there with what they call science. And yet they won't look at the science of, the powers of consciousness, telekinesis and manifesting. All these things have been documented over and over and over to vigorous standards of proof. But whenever this comes up on TV, you always get some Ponzi expert standing there and saying, well, of course, it's all to do with mass hallucination and things. Where's the data? They always say these things, but where are the statistics and the proof of what they say? And they don't even mention or refer to the statistics of what we say, which, you know, as I said, is proven over and over. Anyway, I just wanted to say that about this series. It has been wonderful. It's been going on for some weeks now, and if you'd like to join us, I'm sure you'll find it intellectually thrilling. Some of the fabulous lectures are behind us now. The only way you're going to get those is actually to become a subscribed member. But hey, listen, the silver membership, it's for what you get, it's buttons. I think it's less than $50. And you get 10 classic speakers, 10 genius expert speakers. You get 10 workshops that follow up on those. You've got bonus tracks, bonus interviews. You've got my gratitude process, which people are just loving. It's a love yourself process, but you have to listen with stereo headphones because it's one of those binaural things, binaural beats that transforms you automatically into alpha and theta relaxing brainwave states. So already it's altering consciousness just with the technology. And then you listen to this beautiful mind process. It's not a meditation, it's something you have to do. You have to work parts of your mind to get the result. But as I said, people are loving it. It's becoming a smash hit. And there's a whole bunch of ebooks. I mean, the Platinum members, they get 50 free bonus ebooks on all sorts of subjects to do with consciousness and being and manifesting and health. This is an absolute feast, ladies and gentlemen. It should be a time capsule. If we shoved all this in a time capsule, let me tell you that human beings in the future, or visiting aliens, if they came and found the planet empty but dug up this capsule, would say, wow, what a civilization. They were on the right lines. They nearly made it. They were really growing towards the truth. Because that's how I feel about this. As I said, it's absolutely cutting-edge research from fabulous minds. The interviewer is pretty smart too, knows a thing or two, so I knew how to steer them. I knew what I was looking for. Wonderful series. It's called The Science of Being and Consciousness, and the emphasis is on the words science, not fluff and new age and pretty pink thoughts, but what actually do we know, what's been proved, and what's demonstrated. Thanks very much for listening.